I'd like to thank Hurtado Hunter for today's contingency. Agamemno Contingency, Nina Project. In this world, there are people born with extraordinary abilities. Sometimes this is due to genetics or a mutation. But unfortunately, there are times where it's done intentionally, where people throw out their morals all for the sake of creating a weapon, resulting in the birth of a child who is then stripped of all the humanity they deserve. This was the unfortunate story for Jane Hopper. After her birth, she would be kidnapped and placed at the Hawkins National Laboratory, where she was given the test subject number of 11. I will not be calling her that, as I refuse to dehumanize her by any means. In her time being experimented on, Jane would test her abilities, growing stronger with every passing day. At first, she was barely capable of crushing a can, but eventually she'd grow strong enough to retaliate against her captives. They'd succeeded in creating the weapon they wanted, and unfortunately for them, they'd suffer the consequences. Even after escaping, Jane's life wouldn't get easier. The damage done to Jane's emotional state was something she'd continue to carry with her. It's not something you can undo in a season. As time went on, she'd continue to show her power, at one point being capable of tossing a speeding van over her head. She can also freeze other humans in place, even control their actions to a point. But some of her strongest feats came about when she was pushed to her absolute limits, such as the time where she'd been forced to fight with another child with similar abilities. Given the code name of one, he was the first subject to be kidnapped and experimented on, and when his powers were unleashed, he'd lash out and kill most of the others. In their fight, he'd seem to have the advantage at first, but Jane would show him how powerful she was, not only being able to overpower him, but seemingly atomizing his body as well in the process. Though personally, her most impressive feat would be when she'd managed to close a portal to the upside-down world. However, this almost proved too much for her to accomplish, passing out immediately after. Countering Jane would prove difficult in close proximity, as with her powers showing the smallest bit of hostility could prove fatal. And I've ruled out attempting to subdue her by overtaxing her power, as her temper can affect her powers. Should she lose control, it would cause more harm than good. The best course of action I can take is to wait for a moment when her guard is at its lowest and administer a quick acting sedative to render her unconscious. After that, usually this is where I explain how I would capture a target of my contingency, going into detail of what methods I'd use to keep them locked up or sedated. But all I'd be doing is returning Jane to the life she'd tried so hard to escape, jailed again for the crime of existing. And in truth, I don't think I'd be able to bring myself to hurt her. She reminds me of someone else. Someone I couldn't save. Jane is someone who needs proper guidance and safety. But while she lives in the world of man, I don't believe she'd get that. But I know of a place where she could, and I've been in talks with Wonder Woman to make it happen. Diana has agreed to meet with Jane and extend an offer for her to live on Paradise Island. It's important that the decision be hers and hers alone, and that she is aware that she can choose to leave whenever she desires. We will also promise the safety of her friends regardless of her choice. I've dealt with Amanda Waller. Compared to that, Hawkins Laboratory is child's play. If you also have a character you wish for me to cover, or just want to support this channel, I'll have a link to my Ko-fi page. There will also be a Google Doc with the list of characters who have ever been done or already commissioned by others.